Well, welcome back, and this time to part 2, DCL-702. Yes, this is a re-upload. The previous upload had almost no audio. I had some audio problems here. I didn't realize I had because I hate reviewing my own videos. In any event, that's fixed, but that brings up two apologies. Number one, I'm very sorry for the echoey video on the previous video when I played an embedded video in the presentation. I have fixed that problem. Number two is the coughing and wheezing. I am having an awful time with allergies. I guess they're never going to stop. So if I mispronounce words or hesitate or mute the mic for a while and don't speak, that's because I'm trying not to cough in your ear. If you haven't seen DCL-701, go to the description of this video down below, click on the playlist link, and then click on the DCL-700 playlist, and then click View Playlist or View All Playlist or something like that. And you can find DCL-701 and watch it first if you want to. In this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. The upper left-hand corner of every slide, yeah, I'm doing this with PowerPoint, of every slide in the blue box will either say display settings or stimulus settings. If you want to zip ahead to stimulus, zip ahead to this slide. Now this slide doesn't last very long, so in the upper left corner of every slide, it will say display or stimulus. You can streak ahead with the cursor, find stimulus, go back to the divider slide, and play from there if you want to, if you already understand all the display and trace settings. So let's talk about display settings. What if you mess around with the display and you don't know what you did? There's two ways to go back to where you started. I'm sure you remember my display from last time. I have a sweep of 5 to 10 megahertz and I have my three traces. Let's assume that I go in here and I make some changes to the traces. So now I have that. What if I don't know how to get back to where I was? Well, if all I've done is make some changes, all we've got to do is turn it off, turn it back on, and all the traces come back. Of course, it always puts the frequency at the top. Here, we'll put it back down. So that's one way to get back what you had. Another way is, again, we'll go in here and we'll turn things off. Let me get back to it. There we go. All right. Another way is to go back in, go to recall, find what you saved before, and now you have it back. The only caution I have is if you turn the unit off and turn it right back on, sometimes the display will be blank. Don't worry, it didn't blow up. Turn it off, wait about 5 seconds, and turn it back on. It'll come right up. Mine does this a lot. It does not seem to be any real problem or any impending failure. Of course, the cleaner way to do it is just go recall the old settings. I'm sure you remember So if you made some changes and you like what you did and you want to save them, how do you do that? Well, that's what this video is all about. Now, what if you have this display, you make your changes, whatever they are, and you're happy with that, and you decide you want to save that. You go to calibrate. Now, you're not going to calibrate, but that's where the save menu is. Go to save. If I tap this, I will replace the contents with the new configuration, which just has this display. If I do this, look what I've done. I go to recall. I tap this one. I get my old format. This one, I get my new format. So it's up to you. If you want to do away with what you had before, just overwrite what you already had. If not, make a new memory location or use up a new memory location. How to set scale. By scale, we mean, well, I guess the best way to explain it is to just show you. So you hit the display button. It's the scale button we're worried about. And again, the best way to explain how to do this, I'm just going to show you in a video. Let's continue to look over the trace menus. We go to display. We go to trace. I'm going to take out the Smith chart, but I'm going to leave return loss and SWR in there together. And the reason I'm going to do that is something I want to show you. Let's say we're in the SWR menu, or the menu for the SWR trace. And you look at that SWR curve, and you think to yourself, well, that doesn't really tell me very much. Because there is a... When I say it doesn't tell me very much, if you watch the cursor, as I moved the cursor, oh, where's my cursor? As I moved the cursor along, the yellow one went along here, the purple one just went along here. Yeah, the number might change, sure, but there's no graphic representation of what the SWR is doing. I like a graphic representation more than just numbers. So 3-to-1 SWR, see that? And a 1-to-1, but out here it's not telling me anything. Now, maybe you don't care what the SWR is, but what if you're designing the antenna or trying to figure out what other responses it has? One thing you can do, and there's a reason I'm leaving the return loss up there. I'll get to that in a minute. So you go to trace and you say, I want to edit this, all right? You back up. Now, again, because I've highlighted the purple trace, which right now is SWR, these first 3 buttons will adjust the purple trace, but the scale button does too. Right now, the bottom is a 1-to-1 SWR, the top is a 3-to-1. Why don't we just make that, let's say we make that a 10-to-1 at the top. Now, this doesn't change the fact that 2-to-1 SWR still occurs at 7.3 megahertz, and on the bottom side, it still occurs at 6.9 megahertz. That doesn't change. But look what it tells you, is there's a funny little spike out here. Now, we don't care about that little dip, but maybe you do. Maybe if you're designing something or tuning or trying to figure out how the antenna works, that's important to you. The reason I left the yellow trace up was, did you notice, if I change this back to a 3, it changes the SWR trace. It didn't change the return loss trace one bit. So when you're in here playing around, these first 4 buttons, the first 4 below trace operate on a per trace basis. And I kept calling the purple trace the SWR trace. Well, it is because we've assigned it to be that. But you can, as you know, you can assign any function to any trace. It's just in this case, purple is my SWR trace of choice. The last three buttons, we're just going to leave those alone for now. I will come back to them in like video 7 maybe. If you want to play with them, go right ahead, because now you know how to restore your settings, so you can be brave. If you play with them enough, you might just figure out what they do on your own, and you might not need me. But anyway, the important thing is you've now learned how to restore your settings easily, so you can be brave and experiment with anything you want to experiment with. Okay, this is where we're going to spend the next 15 minutes. Very important, and I hope this is interesting to you. We're all familiar with this menu. Let's take a look at the one stimulus setting that is not on the stimulus menu. It's right here. All it does is turn the sweep on and off. And I made a video. Now you're going to hear some tick, tick, tick sounds. That's because my ICOM 7300 is tuned to 7.1 megahertz. So it's listening to the 7.1 megahertz ping or point of the VNA. When you don't hear it, it's because the sweep has stopped temporarily. Did you notice when I was moving the cursor around, the sweep stops while I'm moving the cursor? Not that it's all that important, I just thought I would point that out. All right, let's get into the heart of all this, the stimulus menu. You already know about these two. You've watched me enter a start frequency and a stop frequency. What about these? Well, they do the same thing as start and stop, they just do it in a different way. I can enter a start of 5 megahertz and a stop of 10 megahertz to get the display I have in front of you right now. Or I can hit a 7.5 center with a 5 megahertz spread. That gets me a start and stop of 7.5 minus half of 5, or 7.5 plus half of 5. I'll show you more about that at the end of the video, although I'm pretty sure you probably get the idea. CW frequency. This means exactly what it sounds like. You put out a continuous wave carrier on one frequency. I'm trying to figure out what I would ever use this for, and I can't think of anything. But, just in case, again, my ICOM 7300 is tuned to 7.1 megahertz, and you'll hear it in the background. Oop, I made a mistake. Back up. Notice that return loss and VSWR don't change when I move the cursor. The reason they didn't change is the entire sweep is the same frequency. I know it's weird, but take a look. When I move it, the cursor, watch the frequency. It's not changing. In any event, that's CW. I suppose I should show you how to restore that. That is, restore the regular sweep. I back up, I recall, and I just get everything back. Again, notice the radio doesn't hear the pings when I'm moving the cursor. Again, not that that's important, just thought I'd point it out. Okay, here we go. We're going to spend the rest of the video, about 10 minutes, on these three buttons. What I would say to you is leave those two alone. Let the instrument set those automatically until you really understand how they work, which you're going to understand in a few minutes. First, if we press that button, we get this really cool menu. Notice in every every setting, let's say it that way, every setting, it ends in a 1. Why does it end in a 1? Isn't that a little weird? Well, it's not. There's a cool mathematical reason why you have to have that 1 point on the end. Let's say they gave me an option for 11, not 10, but 11 points. They don't, but let's pretend they do. That means count. Just count for a minute. There's 5 and 5. So there's a center point, which is pretty important with most of your measurements. You usually center them on something. That's number one reason why there's a 1 on the end. The other reason is now you have 10 intervals, or 50, or 100, or 400, or whatever. You have a perfect number of intervals. And what that means is you can enter a start and a stop and get a 5 megahertz spread, or you can enter 7.5 with a 5 megahertz span. In both cases, your center frequency is 7.5 megahertz, and in both cases, you have 10 intervals. So each of those 11 frequencies are going to be 5 megahertz divided by 10, or 500 kilohertz apart. So in that case, my little frequency step button would say 500 kilohertz. And every time I move this leveler button, as they call it, this frequency would increment or decrement in 500 kilohertz steps. But the reality is I have a 5 megahertz wide sweep with 100 points. So I have 5 megahertz divided by 100. That's 50,000. Well, there we go. It set the frequency step to 50 kilohertz. If I set it to 51 points, I'm now dividing 5 megahertz by 50. So now I have a step of 100 kilohertz. You're going to like this one. If we divide by 400 steps with a 401 sweep point setting, we get 12.5 kilohertz resolution. And what that means is when you slide this back and forth, this varies in 12.5 kilohertz increments, so you can really take a microscopic look at your response of the antenna. In the next video, I pressed this button to get that menu, and I'm going to toggle between 100 and 400 points. Before we get started, just so you know what you're looking at, there's the VNA. It's feeding this ugly mess of connectors into a dummy load. There's a 30 dB tap going into the analyzer. The reason for that is it knocks the signal down by 30 dB. And number one thing with a spectrum analyzer, you cannot overload the front end. And when I fed it direct, I didn't really like the display. And I couldn't get my age-old analyzer to kick in its own attenuator, so I added one externally. So that's why you see this weird mess in front of you. Anyway, watch what happens. There's my 101 points. Now 400 points. The scan is slower because you're hitting 4 times the points. So if we watch it again, every time the scan restarts, the blue light blinks. Now the blue light blinks. Now. So you'll notice this blue light the speed will vary as to how many points you have set. Again, not that it's all that important. I just thought I'd bring it up. There's one other thing I want to show you. You don't really have to concentrate on this too much, but it's just something I found very curious, I guess would be my word. My sweep on my analyzer is the same as my VNA, 5 megahertz. I have 10 grid lines. I have one grid highlighted with a little yellow box. If it's 5 megahertz wide totally, and I divide it by 10 grids, that little grid is 500 kilohertz of RF spectrum. If my frequency step is 50 kilohertz, I must have 10 points in that little box, right? So the VNA is going to scan all 10 points every time it scans. Except it doesn't. Now, I don't care about 400 points. The human eye can't see that. But 10 points, it's skipping some. Is it really skipping some, or is it an anomaly between my camera's scan speed and the display of the spectrum analyzer? Maybe that's not even real. Let's look at it a different way. This is my Icon 7300. As you can see, the grid lines are set up every 50 kilohertz. Let's start the scan. Well, it got all of them, didn't it? No, I don't think it did, because every time a light lit up, you heard the pulse over here at 7100 or 7.1 megahertz. Let's start it up. Let's do it again. Okay, now what's it doing? Very odd, isn't it? All right, I can't explain to you what's going on because I have not had the opportunity to take all the time to really look at what it's doing, and we really don't care. But I just wanted to show you this. I can tell you the way it skips is related to this setting. If you change this, you can change that pattern. But if you set this number too low, what happens is you get the 400 points, because you're not jogging properly, and if you lower this, you can actually make the scan only last part way. The point of what I'm saying is, if you insist on playing with those two, you've got to determine if you have messed the scan up or not. So be very careful. You can play with them, go right ahead. But just understand that when you do that, you don't know for sure, unless you verify, what the VNA is really doing. If you leave them alone, it will automatically resolve all this. You don't ever have to touch those two. You can change your sweep points and your frequency spread all you want to. The instrument will automatically set those two settings. So think of that as your advanced playground later on when you have time to waste. Okay, we're all done, but I wanted to show you kind of a little summing up video that only takes about a minute, but I do a lot of stuff in it. So bear with me here, and then we'll be done. All right, I'm going to set a center frequency of 7.15, and then a span of 300 kilohertz. So that's the exact 40 meter band. Now, take a look. I have a 300 kilohertz sweep with 100 intervals. So I'm going to adjust my frequency right. Oh, I didn't have my cursor on, I'm sorry. So I have a 300 kilohertz sweep with 100 intervals. So I have a 3 kilohertz frequency step. So this is going to change by 3 kilohertz every time I toggle this switch. There I go. Notice how the frequency changes by 3 kilohertz. Watch this. 400 points. Take a look at this. 300 kilohertz divided by 400 points is 750 hertz, When I restart the video, you're going to see this change in 750 hertz increments. See that? 750, 500, 250. And the reason it was reason it did that, you got to remember you're carrying the 1 in the thousandths place, which I'm sure you already understand. Anyhow, I wanted to show you that because it kind of sums up everything I've been talking about for the past 24 minutes and 18 seconds. Well, the closing thoughts for next time, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll get through them real quick. Please hang in there. In the next video, it might be the shortest one I've ever done. I'll show you how to factory reset the device. It's kind of fun. You've got to download a program off the internet, which is free. I'll show you how to get it safely without viruses and all that kind of crap. And it's a very safe thing to do. And we'll talk a little bit about factory reset and what it really is. After that, the next video, oddly enough, I want to talk about watt meter readings, SWR, return loss, and Smith charts. And the reason I want to talk about all those is to explain to you what the various displays mean so that you can get the most out of this device. I assume that you have no background in radio, which most of you have a background in radio, so you're going to get through it really fast. But I want everyone to understand what they're looking at. Because as I think I said before, and I said this on Facebook, I want everyone who buys one of these to love it and use it. And I've heard a couple of stories of guys getting disgusted with them and returning them for a full refund because they come with no documentation. So I want everyone to have a good time with these things and learn to use them, and that's the spirit in which I make these videos. Many years ago, I got a lot of help from much older gentlemen that taught me a lot. I'm now an older gentleman, and I would like to teach others what was taught to me. So I kind of feel like this is payback. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was worth 26 minutes of your time, and see you next time.